Everyone, welcome back to On Purpose, the place you come to become happier, healthier, and most healed. Today's guest is one of my dearest friends, someone I've known for quite a few years now, and I can't believe this is his first time on the podcast. Darman is one of the most watched digital storytellers in the world, reaching billions with videos that turn simple stories into powerful life lessons. Dar has achieved so much success in his career. He's been named as one of the biggest creators by Forbes. Please welcome to the show my dear friend and insane creator, Darman. Dar, it is great to have you here.
It's such an honor, Jay. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming. And I'm so glad that it's happening now because we've gotten, 7-8 years of building this amazing friendship together.
One of the things I knew when I started my career was that I never wanted to be lonely on the journey. And I feel like there are certain people, and we have a lot of mutual friends that we've all connected with, that we're all in the industry. We all want to see each other win. We want to support each other. We want to give each other advice and guidance and give each other insights where and when we can. And I'm really grateful to you for as a friend as well, is that watching your success, which we will dive into today, watching your story unfold and the incredible businesses you've built, we'll get into today. Dar, I want to start off with a question because I know a little bit about you. You've told me your story and I want to dive into it for the audience. Tell me about a childhood memory that you have that defines who you are today.
You know, what's interesting is that as I think back upon my childhood, I actually can't remember a lot of it. As I look back now as an adult, I realize that's because I created this emotional detachment because of all the struggles and pain that I went through as a kid. It was a tough childhood. I grew up around, constant yelling and arguing and violence that I try to block a lot of it out. And it's hard because as a child, so much of your perspective in life is shaped by your parents, right? As a child, you think that whatever your parents tell you is the truth, is, how you're supposed to see the world. And then it's not until you get older that can you actually start to realize that my parents are also flawed human beings, that they don't always know what's right and what's wrong. My parents had just come from India to America, and they came with $6 in their pocket. My dad, didn't even finish like an equivalent of a high school education. So he was just trying to figure everything out in life in America, in this world where they didn't even speak English. And they made a lot of mistakes in the process. And that's the toughest thing as a child, especially when you grow up thinking that your parents are your hero, to have to now all of a sudden start to see, all of the mistakes that they made. And it took a long time for me to have to try to unlearn some of the things that I was taught and also to try to heal from them. But at the same time, I'm so grateful for the tough childhood that I had, because now I have the opportunity as a father to show up for my daughters in a way to be the parent that I never had as a child. And that means so much to me because my goal as a parent is not to try to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. But my goal is to give them so much love and support that my daughters don't have to spend their adult life trying to overcome the traumas that they received as children. But, I'm just at a place in my life where I believe that everything that happens is for a reason, and I try to see the positive from it.
It's super powerful to hear that, to think about how you're parenting differently because of how you were parented. And I know that when you say that, we actually share a lot, and we've had dinners where we've talked about this, that we share a lot of history and how we were raised and what we came up through. And of course, both of us are Indian, although you grew up in the States and I grew up in London. I've always joked that I had 3 options growing up, which was to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure. What did you think you were going to be? Or what did you expect from yourself when you were growing up as a young man?
When I was growing up, I just wanted to be accepted. I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to find a community. So when I was 8 years old, I actually had a turban. And as you can imagine, as being like the only Indian at my elementary school wearing a turban, I was often made fun of. I was bullied. It wasn't in like today's environment where there's a lot more awareness. I'm not saying that doesn't happen today, but it was a really hard time. And so I grew up just feeling like I never fit into the American community. But at the same time, if you're Indian and you follow the Sikh faith, or any sort of religion, that there's different aspects or there's different levels of people that follow the faith. And so the time that I would be in an American school, I never felt like I quite fit in. But also the opposite happened. When I would go to our temple on Sundays, because I may not be as religious, or I didn't wear a certain amount of garments, or because I didn't pray as many times in a day, I also felt like I wasn't good enough for that community. So for a long time in my life, I just felt like I was too Indian for the Americans and I was too American for the Indians. So I fell in some place in the middle. I remember spending a lot of high school just trying to find people that I could have lunch with. Every day, that was my biggest anxiety, is I didn't want to have lunch alone. And my school was very racially segregated. So, everyone from each culture kind of ate at their own table. And I just found myself as this outcast. And so there were a lot of days that I would eat lunch inside of the bathroom because I didn't want anyone to know that I had no one to sit with. And as I got to my junior and senior years, I actually would start having lunch with my teachers because I connected with them more. I, for a long time, chased that feeling of belonging and feeling of community that I never quite got. And again, just kind of looking back as to how I look back in my life and realize that everything happens for a reason. Now, today, because I was seeking to build that community and didn't have one, I was able to build one of the largest communities in the world of other people that also felt like they didn't really belong at some time in their life.
Yeah, it's incredible how the stories you tell now are so wired by the messaging of what you experienced. Even if it may not be just the South Asian American story, you're appealing to so many young people around the world who are feeling othered, who are feeling like they don't belong, who are feeling like they're bullied, who are feeling like they don't connect, they don't know where they fit in. And it really is this incredible pain to purpose story, which sounds cliche, but when you actually hear your story back, you're like, oh, wow, no, that's true. Like, you're literally telling stories that are helping people who are going through what you were going through all those years ago. When was the first time you actually felt in your whole life that you did belong? I wonder if you even feel that now.
Very recently, I have started to feel like I belong. There's different aspects of belonging, right? First is sort of on the professional side of things. As a creator, as an entrepreneur, and being successful, and I'm very grateful to have received a certain level of validation that has come from my consistency in doing things that have made me feel like, okay, I belong. As much as I could try to convince myself of that before, I would never have been able to until I reached a certain level of success objectively. And I think that's important for anyone that's like struggling with self-confidence. What I would say is the repetition and the consistency, and eventually the success follows. That's when you start to build that self-confidence. And that continues to propel as you go further into what you do, right? Like today, you have interviewed the biggest guest. So whoever, I don't even know which is the biggest celebrity that you've not interviewed. Maybe Beyonce, The Rock. I don't know if you've interviewed these guests yet. I'm sure they're coming. You would not be nervous about that because you've already put in all these repetitions, right? And have interviewed all these other guests and built that self-confidence in yourself. And so I would say professionally, I have felt more recently like I've belonged because of the practice and the effort. And that all comes from all the failures of like trying to figure it out. But I would say the other part of belonging, and the more important one that I realize now as I get into my 40s and my perspective has changed, especially as a father, is just realizing that you actually don't have to belong. We're actually born to stand out. And the people that really support you and love you, they're going to be there no matter what. And so what I always remember is if I have nobody else in this world, I have my daughters. And as long as I have a tight relationship with them and I'm showing up to be the father that I want to be, I'll always feel like I belong.
Yeah, so that's a great answer. What was the first business you ever started?
Oh my God.
And not even, it may not even be an official business. I mean, like, what was your first hustle? Because I think about it, like I used to buy jackets of these streetwear brands from outside of England and then sell them to people in England. And so I'd order like Averex jackets and Shot jackets. These were brands that I remember people in my area loved having. And I'd always find them early and then sell them. And I was doing this when I was like 15 years old at school.
Yeah.
And that was like my first kind of entrepreneurial venture. I was delivering papers before that. What was your first job? What was your first business?
You had a lot more foresight than I did. Mine wasn't as calculated. I probably started my first business venture, quote unquote, when I was in 5th grade, 10 years old. And I would just set up little stands where I would sell baseball cards. So I'd make like a couple bucks. I've done everything from like selling lemonade to selling, I don't know if you remember when the CD burners came out.
Yeah.
And it was really popular to be able to now have custom soundtracks on CDs. So I was the guy, because a lot of people couldn't afford CD burners. So I was the guy that for $10, you could say like what your favorite songs were. I put them on a CD, and I'd even learn how to like print custom artwork, and I'd put it like on the sleeve so you could have this like really cool jewel case. And then as I got older, in college, I would say like my first real business was I was trying to find a place to live. And at that time, this is pre-Craigslist. This is all the tools that exist today online. And so the only way to find places to live was like you'd have to go to the local bulletin boards. And it was really hard because bulletin boards were messy. Your flyers would get taken down. Like a lot of times, they just weren't maintained properly. So at a certain point, I found a 2-bedroom apartment and I needed a roommate. I didn't know anyone that was looking for an apartment. So I decided that I was going to put flyers all around these bulletin boards. I woke up super early. There was probably like 30, 40 bulletin boards all around campus. I posted these flyers, and then I went home, showered, came back like later in the day as a student. And I realized half my flyers were like torn down. Half of them were just like they fell off the bulletin board. I was like, man, this is a real struggle trying to be able to reach people. So I started this business called Davis Marketing Services, where basically I would help businesses that were trying to reach students post flyers on bulletin boards. And that continued to evolve. I set up like a sales team that was commission only. I worked with a local sorority that would do my distribution, that would go and like post all the flyers. I hired a graphic designer that would create really cool art. And I started getting clients like apartment buildings that would say, hey, help us fill our housing. And I started making money that way. I probably had like a 5-person team by the time I was like 19 years old or so, which was cool. And then after that, I got into real estate and I started what now is sort of known as like a boiler room or like a call center. And I probably at the peak of it had like 40 students working for me, where they would just call people and ask if they were interested in refinancing their home or selling their home. I became a real estate broker pretty early on. And so that was like at the peak right before the 2008 real estate crash. I got the front page of like our student newspaper highlighting like the business that I built. We got to 3 offices, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I even bought like a Lamborghini when I was 21 years old. I bought 2 houses as investment properties. The hard part about that is life is going to give you certain levels of validation, even if you're on the wrong path, right? Even if I'm doing things for the wrong intentions, success could still blind you because you're receiving a certain level of validation. Maybe you're receiving a certain amount of money, or people that are around you, whether they're good influencers or not, are saying, hey, great job. And they're all sort of benefiting from like what is happening anyway. But ultimately, if you do things for the wrong reasons, it's never going to work out. And I had to learn that the hard way multiple times in my life. So I spent a lot of my life in my late teens, early 20s, just misdirected, trying to chase money over meaning. And that led me to a lot of bad short-term decisions that ultimately I had to come later in life to realize weren't the right way of doing things. And that's why I'm such a believer in second chances, in self-growth. That's why I started my whole studio to say that you can make mistakes. You can get everything wrong in life, hit rock bottom, and completely change your life and become someone entirely new. That's what I did with my life. And that's what I try to inspire others in knowing that they can also do the same.
You didn't go to business school. You didn't have a business you were inheriting from your family. And you didn't have someone say, "Duh, here's $1 million, go and start a business." Where did you learn business skills?
I was always just really motivated with a lot of big dreams. And I was never scared to try and fail. Because what I realized is I was working retail like in my late teen years. Like my very first job was at Gap. And then I worked at Macy's for a little bit. And when I was thinking about starting my own business, I just realized like, hey, okay, what if it doesn't work out? What if you fail? Okay, then that means you just go on and get a job just like everybody else. Trial by failure, right? How did you become a great public speaker? It kind of goes back to our conversation that you had to probably mess up a lot of times on stage to be able to have the confidence that you have, right? How does anyone become a great athlete? You miss a lot of shots before you actually score. The hard part about business is, let's say in baseball, you hit 1 out of 3 balls and get on base, you're an all-star player. But in business, right, it feels like so much pressure if you lose or your business fails or your idea doesn't work out because we're worried about everybody's judgment on us. We're worrying about failing in public. But the thing is even if you fail 9 times in a row and you succeed that 10th time, the thing that people are going to remember you for is that 10th time that you actually succeeded.
You say to someone who says, I'm scared I'm going to put out a video that's cringe. I'm scared that I'm not going to have any customers for my business. I'm scared that no one's going to buy my product. I'm scared I'm going to fail.
You know, when I think back about putting out my first video, I had those same thoughts of self-doubt. And keep in mind, I started putting out content in my 30s. A lot of times, you know, people that are a little bit older might think, oh, I missed my window because I see a lot of creators that are teens or in their early 20s, right? I didn't start my journey until my mid 30s. And when I was recording my very first video, I was stuck, you know, feeling that level of paralysis where, hey, what are people going to think? What if people laugh at me? What if no one watches the videos? And what got me over that hurdle was remembering that even if one person watched my videos and it made a difference, a positive impact in their life, then that's a reason for me to keep going. And I put out that video for that one person. And it was also a good thing I had that realization because there's probably only about one person that was watching my videos in the beginning. And it was my mother-in-law. Like Laura's mom was so good at like liking and sharing my videos to all of her network. And for a long time, you know, I wasn't getting any views. Then I kept at it, right? I kept switching formats. My whole content was about not giving up after failure because I was somebody who just found myself having failed so many times in my life that I wanted to inspire people that even if you have failed, you can keep going. So as my content wasn't taken off the way that I wanted to, as it was failing, I wanted to give up myself. But because my messaging was to not give up, I had to keep going. That inadvertently became my own motivation. And so I kept trying new formats, new types of stories. Eventually, I landed on asking friends and family members to be actors in videos. Everything was shot in my small little studio apartment on iPhones. And one of the very first videos that ended up going viral was a video that honored housewives because I realized that housewives, especially at that time, there was not a lot of content that made it obvious as to how hard it is to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I created the storyline about a mom who has this to-do list and she wakes up in the morning, she has to get her kid ready, she has to get herself ready, she makes lunch, she takes her kid to school, she comes back, she cleans the entire place. She's doing all this work and then she's making her husband's favorite lunch for when he comes back. And right before he comes home, the child makes a complete mess out of the house once again. So the husband comes home and he looks around and he's clearly upset. And the wife goes like, what's wrong, honey? Do you not like it? I made your favorite dish. And he goes, I like it, but what did you do all day? Were you just sitting around doing nothing? And you could tell she was completely heartbroken by that response. And she walks off in tears. And so the husband is upset and, you know, feels like his wife doesn't appreciate him because of his hard work and he's the only one doing hard work. He goes and he finds the notebook of her to-do list and sees all the different things that she had to do that day. And at the very end, it was make dinner for the person that I love. And he instantly felt this guilt, realizing how much she actually did, but he didn't see it. And what was so special about that video for me, it was the very first one to ever go viral, but what was so special was not just the amount of views. Yes, that video went on to get 250 million views. But what was more important to me were the comments. There were so many women that said, this video helped me feel seen. This video helped me feel like being a housewife or a stay-at-home mom is appreciated. And on the flip of it, there were so many husbands in the comments saying, wow, I decided to bring my wife flowers today to let her know how much she's appreciated. I'm going to start to tell her how much I love her and I see the hard work that she's doing. So I started seeing the actual change that happened in the world. So what I would say is, if you are looking to create content, if you are looking to start a business, if you're looking to do anything that is worthwhile, start with your why. Start with your purpose. And if your purpose is to try to help people, which I hope it is, as you and I can both relate to, no one wants to start something and make the world a worse place, right? We all want to make the world a better place because of what we have contributed to it. Then just remember, even if one person is able to to be better off because of what you have done, then it's worthwhile pursuing. My very first comment on a video, do you know what it was? It was one of my quote unquote friends that said, "Who do you think you are? Tony Robbins?" And that hurt so bad because I was like, oh my gosh, who do I think I am? But then I also realized that that video is not for him.
That's such a great story, man. I love the reframe of putting yourself out there, being cringy, being awkward, being uncomfortable, because it may help one person. I love that reframe because one of my friends recently started making food content. And she was telling me, she was like, oh gosh, anytime I put out a video, I just feel so awkward and cringe. But the thing that keeps her going is someone who messages her and says, I made your recipe for my daughter tonight and she loved it. Or like, I made this for my husband tonight or my wife tonight and they loved it. That is what keeps us going. And I think when you get lost in the views and the numbers and the digits, you lose that love. And I think that happens even in the astronomical numbers. We've both experienced insane numbers. And if you don't look at the comments with those insane numbers, you stop being fulfilled because the numbers don't last for that long. Like they can eventually you can get used to them as well. But it's that comment, it's that DM that makes all the difference. If people start making content like that, now talk to me about what makes the shift where like, okay, you were putting it out. It was making one person happy, your mother-in-law. And that video you just told me about was your personal story with Laura, where you were ungrateful to her, right? That's what it was. I'll get that. I'll ask Laura later. Her to-do list, like all these things.
This was at a time where she was not a mom yet.
Okay, fine.
But yeah.
But talk to me about the difference between I'm making videos, it's making one person happy, I'm doing it for the right reason, I'm doing it for a mission. But hey, I need to get better at this. Like I need to understand how to connect with more people. Because if I'm going to make this my livelihood and actually have a team, I know you have a huge team, you have incredible studios now, like what it's grown to is a real machine. And I think this is something I want to make people aware of, that you can do what you love, but if you want it to last and you want it to sustain and you want it to grow, it is going to have to become more effective, organized, and machine-like to some degree. Talk to me about how you tested and what you did as a business person in order to go from, I want to make a difference in the world, one person is happy, but actually we need to reach more people if I'm going to make this real.
There's a 5-step process that anyone who's looking to be a successful creator or even to own a business or be an entrepreneur, that if you follow this 5-step process, I promise you, you will be successful. To make it on brand, right? I came up with an acronym as to what this 5-step process is. So the 5-step process is called HEART. HEART. Step 1 is H. Honor your story. You can easily follow trends, but instead tell your truth. We were talking about this earlier, that there are so many people that want to be creators out there. There are so many businesses out there. It could feel overwhelming. If you have a goal right now, that's probably in the back of your mind. There's already so many people. How am I going to stand out? But there is only one you. There is only one person that has lived the life that you have lived and is able to tell your story. So start by honoring your story. And I'll tell you a quick example. There is this friend that I have. She's from Colombia and she has this thick accent. She's always wanted to be in media. And so when she came to America, she was working as a news broadcaster. But she would be given a hard time by the producer because the producer would say, you're not pronouncing certain words right. That's not how it's said. And would constantly make her feel insecure and criticize her because of her accent. Eventually, she got fired from that job because of her accent. So she decided, instead of giving up on her dream of becoming a content creator, that she wasn't going to let any producer control her destiny. So she decides to start a YouTube channel. And naturally, she just got fired from her job. She's insecure about her accent. She's trying to sound more American, right? Because of that. But she's putting out videos and she's speaking in her authentic voice, creating whatever the type of content that she was creating. And ironically, the reason that her content succeeded is because of her accent. There were so many people that also had an accent that looked at that and said, I can relate to this person because they sound like me. So take the thing that makes you unique and make that your superpower.
Let's talk about that one for a second, because I really do like that one. And I think that's why I've noticed, especially in short form content, the incredible rise in people just sitting in their car. It's so intimate and personal, and you're so in someone's life. And I've heard people just ramble. Like sometimes someone just rambling. Like I think there's a lot to be said for people who are like, oh, I'm not a good public speaker. I'm not well spoken. Some of my favorite videos are just watching someone vent in the car because it just feels so real. And I feel like I'm in the car with you and I feel like I'm your friend. And then there are some people who are more polished, who are more clean about what they want to say, are more clear about what they want to say. And I think I love the part of honoring your story and who you are and where you come from, because that's all you have anyway. Like you can't, like she couldn't change her accent. This person can't change where they live or what they're doing. You are going to have to put yourself out there. And I love the idea of just being really clear about not thinking you have to be more or less polished, more or less professional. Some people I love because they're not professional in how they put out videos at all.
Yeah.
And there are some people I love because they're so professional. And then there's some people who I love because they're really fashionable. And there are some people I love because they don't care. And it's like, that is what's so fascinating about the point you're making, is that we don't all follow one type of person. You might follow someone who's just always put together, and then you love following someone who's always a mess. It's not like this. It's not like there's one person in the world that everyone thinks we should all follow and that we don't want to follow other people who do it differently.
It's the hardest thing in the world to actually believe this and take a chance on this. But the things that you are most insecure about are actually what makes you the most relatable and makes you the easiest to connect with others. Your greatest struggle is actually your greatest superpower. And I'll give another example because we both have a mutual friend, Jamie Kern-Lima, the founder of It Cosmetics. She started her career also in media, and she was always ashamed or made to feel bad about herself because of different skin issues that she had.
Yeah, rosacea.
She had rosacea. And she can never find a product in the marketplace that actually worked for her. So eventually, she decided to create her own product. She turned her biggest struggle into her biggest superpower and eventually sold her brand to L'Oreal for $1 billion. So think about those areas in your life that you feel you're actually trying to hide from. And those actually might be the things that take you to success and grow you into having the biggest audience of people that are experiencing something very similar to what you're going through.
I love that. All right, what's E?
The second step is E, earn your audience's trust. It's easy to get somebody to watch a video one time, but if you're going to build a sustainable career as a creator, you have to get them to keep coming back. And how are they going to keep coming back? Is if they trust you. And the only way to get your audience to trust you is if you know who your audience is. What do they like? What do they feel? What drives them emotionally? What do they connect with? What are things that they're struggling? If you help your audience become seen, they'll want to come back and watch your videos over and over again. So the number one comment that I get with our stories, because we tell stories that have very diverse characters. This was in a time where, Hollywood traditionally has been mainly white. And when I started creating content, I created content with people in the videos that look just like me. I mean, I'm Indian. My wife is Hispanic. Our team is very diverse. So those are the types of people that we put in our videos, and it represented all types of people. And all the storylines from the beginning came from my own life experience of failure. And because other people could relate to what I had been through or experienced similar types of hardships, they said, I see myself in your content. And that's what was able to connect with them. And so similarly, we were just talking about this actually before we started the podcast. You have so many people that want to come on your podcast. And sure, maybe it's going to get a lot of views because they might be a controversial person. And as we know in today's environment, if you say things that are controversial, you'll probably get a lot of views. But you made the decision that your platform, your brand, your mission stands for something. It's who you are. So you have made certain decisions to not platform someone that might have gotten you a lot of short-term success, but because you believe in your long-term success, and more importantly, because you wouldn't ever want to disappoint your audience. So everything you do, you need to think about earning your audience's trust if you want to build a sustainable career as a creator.
What do people do when they feel like everyone's watching and then now no one's watching, and everyone's watching and no one's watching? Like you almost feel like you're trying to earn your audience's trust. You thought they'd be interested in this, but now they're not. And you're feeling disheartened by the fact that, God, the last video got like 1 million views. This video got like 10,000 views. The next video, or let's not even talk about that astronomical. My first video got 1,000 likes. I felt really good. My second video got 100 likes. What do you do when you feel like it's flip-flopping? What are you doing wrong? What are you not understanding?
I think when it comes to pivoting, right? In business, in life, there's going to be a lot of times where something is working and it no longer is. So how do you know when is the right time to actually switch your strategy? Because what is the common advice? Don't give up. Keep going. And guess what? I peddle this advice too. But there is a point in time where, hey, you might want to go do something else.
Yeah.
And there's 3 reasons I would say that you ever want to pivot. Number 1 is when your inner goals no longer align with the outer outcome. And what I mean by that is your purpose is no longer aligned with what you're doing on a daily basis. And a lot of times we might feel that when you're trying to become successful and it's not working, that's when you probably need to pivot. I know just as many people that are actually very successful at something, but they're successful at doing something that no longer serves their mission or fulfills their why. And that's the hardest thing in the world, to take something that is already successful and decide that I'm no longer going to do this because it no longer aligns with who I am. But if you don't make that decision, it's always going to end badly. So if you're ever feeling like you no longer are aligned with your purpose, that's the first reason to shift.
Mm-hmm.
The second reason is when the market has changed or the audience has changed. We keep wanting to put out the same thing because it's worked one time or it's worked for many years. But at certain points in time, trends change. The algorithm changes. Desires, public interest, whatever it is changes. And so we have to be able to face the hard truths of reality. And those will often get you to try new things. There's this great book called Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah, great book.
Yeah. And it's basically about mice trying to go to the same place that they've always found cheese. And then as an experiment, that cheese gets moved to a new location. There's a certain group of mice that keep going back to that same place that cheese was not found. And they keep going again and again and they never give up. And then there's another group that after a couple times where they realize the cheese wasn't there, they actually go a different path and start looking at different areas. The ones that were able to move on the quickest were actually the mice that survived the longest. So if the cheese in your industry has been moved, you have to be able to see that.
Yeah.
The third thing I would say is if you are not pivoting, is it because you are worried and not facing the truth about reality? Because it is scary. It is so scary when something has worked for so long and the idea to now all of a sudden have to do something new that you've never done before. But the longer you stay stuck in that place, the longer it's going to take for you to find that new way of success. So just ask yourself, are you not pivoting because you think the data is wrong? Or is it because you're in denial? And if you're in denial, then you have to face that hard truth that it's time to make a change. And I will say, there's always greatness on the other side of that mountain. I know it sounds scary. Anyone listening to this right now, you are at a place in your life right now that if you look back 5 years ago, you're probably at a better place. And that's because you embrace certain hard changes that might have felt scary at first, but you made those decisions to get to where you are today. So don't doubt your ability to overcome whatever new environments and changes that are going to be there for whatever this new chapter in your life is going to bring.
By the way, thank you for being so systematic. This is why I love Da, because Da has a system and a methodology for everything. And those 3 points help so much. And one of the ways I practically applied that in my company from day one was what I call the 70-30 rule, which was that 70% of our content would always be what we know works and 30% would always be trial and error. And so we were okay if 30% of our posts absolutely tanked and didn't work, because the one that did work would become the next phase of the 70%. And we've seen that time and time and time again. You will see us trialing new formats and trialing new types of content all the time, but that's 30% of our output, because that 30% will become the future 70%. The mistake we make is you do 100% of what works, and when it ends, you don't know what's going to work, and now you have to go 100% in trial, and then you'll have 90% failure, and that gets really, really scary. And so these points that you just shared are huge, and that's been one of the ways that we've implemented it. I even saw in the early days, like I saw a lot of my peers in the space when I started which was actually just 10 years ago, 2016, Jan, this year, I saw a lot of my peers become one platform people. And I saw a lot of people become like a YouTuber. At that time, I was a Facebooker through and through. Like that's where I made content. And I saw people, like I saw peers of mine, or even people before me, hindsight, the OGs,